Welcome to the Mompreneur Nation podcast. You found your tribe for all things motherhood and entrepreneurship. Welcome. It is Shayna Landry here with us to talk all the things. Welcome, Shayna. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to hear how this is going to go.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I'm jumping straight into this, okay, because I was reading through your bio and you are a genealogist, correct?
Yes, I am.
That just sounds like a big word. It's so intriguing, right?
It does.
So, so you got into this because of your own story, and what happened? You can tell us about that.
Yeah, I can. So I actually took an AncestryDNA test in 2015. I was actually trying to prove that someone I thought was my father, the person that I had been told all my life, although he was never in my life, right? Like my for all intents and purposes, my stepdad is my dad. He raised me. But I was kind of trying to find out if I had other family, siblings, things like that through the man that I was genetically related to. And it turned out that when I took the test, it wasn't him at all. So I had to do some detective work after that.
Wow, I think all of us women have a certain degree of detective in us. You know, if you haven't had like the crazy boyfriend or your friend had the crazy boyfriend, like all of us got a little bit of that detective Googleologist inside of us. But you took it to another level. So how did this journey start?
So in 2016, after I took the test, I spent some time looking at my DNA matches, trying to basically triangulate between them where two people came together to have my biological father, right? Because I was able to separate my mom's relatives out. And then what I'm really trying to do is come down to my grandparents based on who they're related to. There's a lot of triangulation there. And then once I get to grandparents, genetically speaking, children below them share the same line of DNA. So if they're full siblings, I couldn't tell between two brothers which one was my father. But there are other circumstances, as I tell my clients, there's geographical situations. So maybe one sibling is off in the military across the country, or things like that. And it turned out between the two brothers that were possibly my father, one was at Southeastern University with my mom at the same time.
Ding, ding, ding. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So did you approach him? Did you get to know him? And what was that like?
So I did. I actually called his brother first because I wanted to make sure that, he didn't have a wife and children, that there wasn't, I wasn't going to make a big splash in someone's life. That was never my intention. And I was just as shocked as he was, to be honest with you, because I didn't think I was looking for him this whole time either. But it turned out that he did not have a wife or children. So I would have been, his closest relative at that point. So I, after reaching out to my uncle, he is honestly the salt of the earth, like the best person on this planet. And so I was super optimistic when I reached out to my dad. And unfortunately, he was not so nice about the situation. He was very shocked and needed a minute to process, understandably.
Yes.
I could see how my uncle could take it way easier than someone who, didn't have children their whole life, and not because he didn't want to. It wasn't for lack of wanting a family. There's just, never the right situation, I guess. And so finding out 30 years later that he had a child that whole time was, I can imagine, pretty stressful for him. And at that time, both of my grandparents had already passed and had wanted grandchildren that entire time as well, and never had any. So this was July of 2016. And he asked me for some time to process. And so I agreed to give it to him. He did admit, though, that he knew my mom. They had a relationship. He had no idea that she had gotten pregnant because she left school after, um, well, the semester that she got pregnant, she left the school. She didn't know she was pregnant, but it just turned out that way. She went back to Baton Rouge and he went back to New Orleans after he graduated. So they just never saw each other again.
Mm.
Um, and so then um, I agreed that, he could have the time that he needed. But he did give me a little gift, and I had sent him a photo of me via text message. And at that point, I had not seen photos of him. And he said, um, well, you look like I just stitched you out. You're my twin. And I was like, really? Gosh, because I mean, all my life I had never looked like anyone. So it was really cool to hear that I looked like someone. Um, but unfortunately, a few months later in November, um, while we were still doing the time apart, we were talking a lot via text message and phone calls. But unfortunately, on Thanksgiving Day in 2016, he passed away. He had a heart attack and he was
Mm.
alone, so there was no one there to help him. So that's a really dark side of this.
I didn't see that part
Um,
coming. Yeah, I'm so,
I'm
so sorry.
sorry.
No.
Um, it's definitely something that took a lot of time for me to work through. I still, deal with emotions from it, but he did bless me, in that. And also, like I said, my uncle is amazing. I'm so thankful for him and his family. He had a baby 2 days before my dad passed away, so I have a little cousin. Um, so there's two of us now, and so my uncle went through the court process with me in order for them to declare me legally my father's child. So I did get some uh, peace there. And he wanted that. He had been saying, because we were talking a lot more, he just wasn't ready to meet yet. Um, he had said a lot of those things to me, that he wanted to legally have me deemed his child and all these things. So it was really cool to follow through with that, as a gift to him that, and for me to have,
Right.
the right, the right father, on paperwork and things like that. Um, so at the time that he passed, he had a house for sale and I did inherit his home and basically just the proceeds from the sale. But what happened there was that I was able to fund the start of my nonprofit with the money from the house. So the family village, formerly the foster village, is actually his legacy.
It's the best story ever. Like, I didn't have like, we've known each other online, how it is, you just
Yeah.
have, like, social friends, but you didn't really, like, know the whole story. I'm like, so I'm getting this real time like everybody else is getting this. This is just like
Yeah.
I love that. Tell us about a family village. I love it.
So the Family Village is a nonprofit. It was formerly the Foster Village. It was basically specifically created to help foster families or what I'll call kinship or fictive kin families, and that is families that take in children instead of the children going into foster care. Maybe it's grandma taking in the children while mom's gone to rehab or dad's, doing the things that he needs to do to get his children back. So those people are actually the main reason, because those people, when they take those children in, do not get help from the state. And so we were, until they're certified. Let me
Right.
say that. But it can take 6 to 9 months to be certified. So they, if grandma is on a fixed income and takes these children in just to avoid them going into care, grandma probably needs help, especially if it's a 15-year-old boy eating her out of house and home with groceries.
Yeah.
But so we wanted to help with those things because, they can be expensive. And I have so many friends and family that want to help. And so we created a space that turned into a cute little place. But at first, it was just storage basically for these items instead of sending them to places like Goodwill. or something like that that might sell them, we give these to people for free. And it turned into like a little boutique. So now we have new or almost new, very gently used items. So if I were to drop a child in your home tomorrow that you haven't had, like let's say I brought you a newborn baby boy, and you needed all the things for him, I could also bring you everything you could possibly need for him, from diapers and wipes and formula to beds and bedding and
Amazing.
everything else.
That-
But we just want to, help people be able to keep their families together. And throughout time, it has actually morphed into something a little more. And that's why we changed the name to the Family Village, to be more inclusive, because we were helping families that weren't necessarily involved with foster care and just needed a hand up, and now we actually have a contract with the state for foster care diversion. So we step in before the state does and try to help with resources, and we even have a caseworker that will work with the families in order to help them walk through those resources, such as if they're having trouble with SNAP benefits or Medicaid applications. Some of those applications take hours, to fill out. And if you check the wrong box or you get declined, I know several of our clients have just given up, but our case manager walks through it with them, and 9 times out of 10 is able to successfully get them the things that they need.
that is so amazing. So amazing. I love what you do. It is so, I mean, statistically, I know there are so many kids out there in the foster system, and it's a truly sad thing. And just personally, we had someone that was very close to us in a foster care situation. They've been taken from their parents and just put into a new home. And I mean, it happened just like that. It was just so, it was super fluid and just keep moving. And they left a traumatic situation to go there. And it was really tough. So the thought that you guys step in there to just kind of be that middleman, that gap, and bridge the issue, make it a little easier. It's so wonderful. And I just love that you do that. That's amazing. That's amazing. How can
Thank
people get
you.
involved and help you with that?
They can visit our website. It's tfbwalker.org, or they can find us on Facebook at the same location, or it's the Family Village. But they can message us. We are always looking for volunteers, donations in the form of monetary, because we do purchase things like mattresses, and depending on if the child needs something special, like if it's like a certain size or a certain type of diaper or something like that, we may not have it, but we'll help out if we can. So and then also like donations of items, of course, we take a variety of things. So all they have to do is reach out to us to get our donation list. And we are the biggest donation we can get is the hands. We need some hands. So anytime people are looking for any type of community service they'd like to do, we would absolutely love to have them. And we do have things that people can do from home. So if we have
Oh,
stay-at-home
that's
moms who want to help out, or anything like that, we can totally accommodate. We have all types of jobs.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So a little bit combo shifter a little bit. August of last year, a really big film was released on Netflix, right? I Just Killed My Dad. And turns out you were in it and you're a part of it. Please explain to me how that came about. What was it like? I watched the series, and I watched the series
Yeah,
like every episode I'm like, "What are you
but you're
like,
right.
tell me how this came about, and is this something that happens all the time? Is this what it's like for you all the time? Or these type of stories,
Okay.
you know?"
Yeah, yes, and no. So first, I'm glad we talked about both of the things that I do, because that's actually how I got involved in both situations. It At the time, this had happened in summer of 2019, and there was a government shutdown at the time. And so my husband works for the federal government, so they were on furlough, and that was when the things happened with Anthony. Was while this government shutdown was going down. So then, the Monday they came back, which I believe was like the 19th, maybe, or the 20th. Um, my husband and his coworker sat down. My husband is the like, tell us what you did this weekend. Like, he makes them do slides and pictures and all the things. He is the opposite of me. But so they had been gone for like 3 weeks at this point, so they had lots to talk about. And one of the guys was doing like Dave Ramsey, like, they had gone gazelle or whatnot. And so when people are on furlough, they don't get a paycheck. And so if they were, really applying the Dave Ramsey thing, he needed to have a job. So he had gotten a side job making money at Clegg's, which is where Anthony worked at the time that he was arrested. And he worked with Elena, who was also in the film with me. And so they they were all around the table that Monday morning, and he was like, "Guys, you'll never guess what happened." And so he was telling them, and all the ladies at the table are like, "You have to call Shayna. Like, y'all need to call Shayna. She can fix this." And so I was like, they called me, and I was like, what?" Because my husband had just had this conversation with me about how I needed to take things off my plate and all this. And then he's
Of
like,
course.
"Hey, can we follow this one on?" And I was like, "Didn't you just say?" But anyway, so they were like, "We were just thinking with like your investigative side and then the side about like how you help kids that have been abused, like maybe you could help figure this out." And so I said, "I'm not promising anything. I will talk to the manager," which was Elena, "but I cannot promise you I can help these people at all. I don't even know how I would even begin to help them, but I'll try." So, lucky for Anthony, I did like Elena and she did have valid points. So I started to look into his father to see if I could find, who his mother was and what happened and why, he was in the situation he was in.
That is that's just insane. So at this point, his father was still alive.
No, his father he was in jail at this point. So he, Elena at that point had been for almost a month at that point, had been calling attorneys to get him an attorney, couldn't find anyone to take his case. No one was listening. And she was really concerned because at first it was a capital murder case. So, it was looking really bad.
Yeah. And then you got involved and you're able to help kind of turn the situation around. So had you not gotten involved, this could have stayed a lot more traumatic. Right?
Yeah. So
Especially
Anthony
who
was
haven't seen
like
this spoiler alert.
headed. Yeah, sorry. He was headed for, life in prison at the least if it would have stayed first degree murder. But they, after I found his mom and found out that he had been kidnapped and all the things that we had found, I called the homicide detectives that night. It was like 11 o'clock at night when I called them. And they were like, "We'll call you tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay." So I told them everything the next day. And, to be honest with you, I didn't know what was going to happen because everything I read prior to that sounded like it was an open and closed case. So I felt like, okay, what if I got this detective on the wrong day? Like, what if he just feels like closing this and moving on, because we know Baton Rouge is flooded with crime and they're busy and they have a lot going on. So, um, I'll be honest with you, I didn't completely trust, not knowing this person, that it would move beyond that conversation. So, of course, I took to social media and I basically got on there and I begged for an attorney to um, take his case pro bono. And then I also was begging for people to share it so that the word got out there because, the more eyes on the situation, the more chance that people will actually do what they say they're going to do. And they both worked. So we did get him an attorney, which was Jared Ambo, and Jared did a fantastic job. He was great with Anthony and still is. Um, and we also were able to get the word out. So that's how we ended up, I guess, with a Netflix.
Like, really? So how did the Netflix thing happen? Did you just get a phone call one day and like, hey, by the way?
Well, so I'd heard that there was a show, there was rumblings that people had been talking to the family about a show. And I was like, I'm not going to get involved with this. It feels a little exploity,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then I talked to Anthony's biological mother, and she said, please, will you please just talk to the producer and see if you get a better vibe? Like, just, she's like, I need you to talk to them for me as a favor. And I was like, okay, well, I'll talk to him, because that lady had been through enough and I wasn't trying to add any more
Yeah.
grief to her life.
Yeah.
And so I did talk to him, and I loved him. He was a fantastic guy. I could tell he had nothing but Anthony's best interest at heart. And so we're actually still friends to this day. The producer and I, we spoke last week, but, so I agreed to do it, and, I guess the rest is history. Everyone else had already agreed, so I was the only holdout.
You're, you're making it difficult for them.
Apparently, I didn't know that, but yeah, I guess.
That's hilarious. So since then, you've had other opportunities come up and another show that's come up. So what is that all about? Give us all the details.
I cannot say much, but I will say it is another similar situation. Just right now, until they have like officially signed and all that, I can't say.
Yeah.
But it is a major network. It'll be actually on 2 networks. So one will be a streaming area, and then one is like on like cable television, I guess. And also, I was in talks last week for a new one as well. So actually have maybe 2.
Isn't it amazing how, like, if you could rewind about 7 years ago, would you ever see your life where it is right now? Like,
No. And the DNA stuff, I didn't, it's not like I ever intended to like get into it or make it a business even. My dad passed away, and after he did, it was so sudden for me. At the time, I didn't believe in that, that crazy stuff called counseling. So I also had a relatively new baby. She was a year old when my dad passed away. So I was home, and she's adopted from foster care, and I was a single mom at the time. So I was home a lot. So I was helping other people solve their DNA cases. So for the last 7 years, 6-ish years, until August 2022, basically, I was just helping people solve super hard cases like mine, because mine, we kind of glazed over it, but I didn't have hardly any matches on my dad's side, like 2.
wow.
He was super Italian. And this was 2015, 2016. Now, I think Ancestry just hit 25 million in their database. So, totally different time than it is now. So, there weren't as many testers. But anyway, so I only specifically worked with people who were having a really tough time, you know, open it up and solve it kind of cases, like people who were really struggling. And so I solved a bunch of those in that time frame. And I guess like my free time, like it was just like something I did to kind of heal from
Yeah.
the crazy amount of trauma that I went through in like 6 months. So I just told my clients, like, doing this for you helps me too. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So then after the Netflix, so it kind of launched me into the universe. It's crazy.
You were holding
So
out on it.
I wasn't prepared. Yeah, I know. And I wasn't prepared for the business, like I had a website that had kind of gotten thrown together very quickly. I had no idea what I was doing. There was a lot going on in a very short amount of time, and people from all over the world were contacting me.
So talk to me a little bit like that. Like, how do you handle overnight success? Well, I mean, technically, it kind of was like overnight success, even though it's not necessarily
Literally,
always the case. But in this situation, it was overnight. How did you
literally
handle that? How
overnight.
did you
Yeah.
process that? Yeah.
Uh, I'm not proud to say there were a lot of moments that I was just like so overwhelmed. I cried a lot. And that sounds crazy because it's like, man, it's like everyone's dream to have so much like business coming their way. But, I was having issues with like, my website had like 10 different ways people could contact me. And so they were doing so. They were contacting me from every different way, like contact forms, chat boxes, emails, text messages, phone calls. And I just could not. And like some people, like if they didn't get a response to the email, they would take to one of the other contact ways. And
Yeah.
so it was like, how do I know who's been responded to? Like there was just no rhyme or reason. And I didn't want to miss anyone. I didn't have any like, now I have automation set up. I have things that will
Yep.
handle all of this. But at the time,
Yep.
I had no idea how to even, before when I was helping someone, I had a thing in my notes on my phone that was like all the questions that I want to ask them to like get background information. And so I was like, how am I going to send these people these questions? Like, do I just email them the questions? And I moved to a Google form, but then I even moved after that to a different space and then like Squarespace so that they could schedule an appointment with me. And then now I'm finally at my landing pad, which is like the best thing on the planet, and that is HoneyBook. And
Yeah.
it does almost everything for me, and I love it. So that was a very fast paced like learning for me. I will say this, there are a lot of things that you need when that kind of thing happens. And like you said, it's kind of a weird situation for me, but like, I think having a good support system in place is really important. Having the right framework. I mean, like I went from my notepad questions all the way to HoneyBook, but like every time I made a change, that was a big hassle, like moving and then remembering I'm still having to go back to the Google form answers that I have for some clients. And then some are in Squarespace and some are in HoneyBook, like moving between all these different spaces still because of the legacy clients. So, um, definitely having those things before you dive into things like this are really smart, but some of it you got to learn on your feet. So
You learn the hard way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And a
Yeah.
lot of times I am the touch the stove kind of person, so I have to like figure it out for myself.
It's just having a conversation with another business owner before you and I hopped on here, and we're talking about like, whenever you have this idea of I'm going to start a business, like, okay, great, I'm going to start a business. Then you get into the business, and it's like, wait, I have to do what that? I have to do, huh? What? What is this? What?
Oh
And
my
you're just,
gosh.
what the heck is going on here?
It's
I
like,
was just trying to help
yes,
people.
someone just needs to write a book on like all the things that you wish you knew before you
Yeah,
started, like for a business. Because yes, you're right. Like it seems like all like sunshine and rainbows, but then there's like all of these things on the back end. And honestly, it makes me respect every single person at
same.
my day job because I'm like, oh my God, the HR department, like I totally understand why you exist
I
now.
love you. I get it. I get it now. I always said whenever I went to college and people would go for business administration and stuff, and I'm like, business administration, just start a business, like, hello.
Right.
Now I'm like, listen, if I can get the cliff notes to all that stuff y'all learn, I would just be so appreciative because I had no idea. I was just trying to help people, and boom, here's all this stuff, and you're just like completely
Mm-hmm.
thrown out. So I mean, it's pretty crazy. But a lot of people talk about overnight success or success and stuff, and you want success, but it's important to build the steps along the way to make sure you have structure at every point, at every small point, for the big point. So
Yeah, especially with social media because you can go viral. Like instant success does
yes,
happen for people all the time right now. So it's like be ready. That is definitely one of my biggest like caution
be
on there.
ready because when it happens, it happens. It's pretty.
Hmm.
So I asked you a question in a form before we hopped on here, and my question was, if you woke up tomorrow with nothing, you had to start over from day one. What are the first three things that you would do? I think one of them is set up structure.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Instead of structure. Another thing that, was a hard, I guess, like learning curve for me was that I was trusting people and not necessarily like trusting people at face value, like for telling me what they were going to do for me, but then not asking the right questions on like how that would transpire. How does the transaction work?
Yep.
What do I
Yep.
get for what I pay you for? Things like that. So, I found myself paying money for things that I thought I was going to get, but then it was lackluster as a form of like what I actually got, I guess, in the for it because when you're paying people to do a service for you, what is that quote that's like, don't expect everyone's heart to be like your own or something like that. Like,
Yep.
it's the same in business. I strive for quality and I make sure that we're square. And sometimes that gets me in a bind because I'll go above and beyond. But not everyone is the same. And so making sure that it is very clear the terms on what you're paying for and what you're going to receive and how you're going to receive it.
Hmm.
Um, because I definitely got myself into a couple of situations where um, I would not do that again. And then also read reviews about people, make sure that they are legitimate business and that there's nothing red flags.
Yeah. Yeah. Make everything legal. I had a friend that told me one time, because sometimes you think whenever you do business with people and you say, okay, I'm going to do a contract, it almost seems a little offensive, like, oh, you don't trust me or something. But in all honesty, like putting things in writing is also protecting your relationship. So, like, we're both clear,
Mhm.
like, this is what you're going to bring, this is what you're going to bring to the table. We're clear on that. We're signing off on it so there's no confusion because the confusion is where things kind of fall through the cracks. And then, you have tough situation. So being clear, making it legal, make a contract, write it down, boom. You avoid a lot of drama.
Exactly. Exactly.
Experience the same
Yeah.
thing. So if someone were having an issue, let's say they were a little bit curious as to what, who their parents are or something like that, what would you suggest to them? What should they do?
So my very first suggestion would definitely be to take an AncestryDNA test. I know there are several out there and people are saying, they'll say, well, I took 23andMe and I didn't get anything out of it. Well, I'll be honest with you, if you're on this particular journey, 23andMe is great. But if you're on this particular journey and you're trying to weigh the odds of like which one you want to take, I 1000% say AncestryDNA. There it's just much more user friendly. It is much more friendly to those of us who are looking for people. And then also to that person, I will say buckle up because this is a roller coaster and you never know day to day how you're going to feel, what you're going to feel. And even though you think you're ready, I have so many clients, they like pay me to find their families. And then I come back and I'm like, here they are. And they're like, what do I do now? I mean, you never know. It could take you, like if someone's doing it themselves, they could take that DNA test and poof, the person could be there. The person they're looking for could be there. So like being ready for whatever that test is going to give you right when you open it versus a week or a month or 3 months down the road. Just being very emotionally prepared for that and ready.
Yeah. Before we hopped on here, we were kind of talking about, getting surprising information and stuff. And I think both of you and I are it's kind of the same things. You probably more now. Like we're head in the sand people. Like, listen, if Arnold and Dee are not my parents, it's cool. I'm fine. I'm so happy. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm just gonna keep riding this wave. I'm just be all right. I don't care. I'm just not interested. But listen, there's some people out here who are listening to you and thinking, Ancestry.com. Okay. So I submit my DNA. Where is my DNA going? Who's getting my DNA? What's going to happen afterwards?
So Ancestry DNA is a privately owned company. So they don't share your DNA with anyone. They won't. There are strict policies in place. They don't share that with the government or anything like that. And they also happen to own basically or have gotten the rights. I don't know how they've done it, but they have compiled like one of the largest like historical databases for all of the families in especially the United States, but they have documentation from all over the world. So you take the test, you send it to their lab, and what they do is they take, okay, let me back up. There's multiple types of DNA tests, right? So like it's a paternity test, for example, or like a pass fail if you're thinking about like testing. So they're like, you're the father or you're not the father, but they're not like looking at anything else. They're just saying yes, no, you match, you don't match. But this is called an autosomal DNA test. And it's basically, if you can imagine, like if you were to set up a shiny new MySpace account and you had no friends, and then you take this DNA test and it populates your friends. But not only does it do that, it populates your top 8. Remember the top 8?
Yeah, I remember
Your top 8 friends.
I remember
It
that.
populates the people most closely related to you to
Mhm.
least like, and you know, when you get down to like super low, it's kind of like what we call white noise. They may not even really be related to you. But the very top, they are like for sure related to you. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, you know, some of my clients have opened it up to see a father there. Some of my clients have opened it up to see siblings. Some have opened up to see grandparents, aunts, uncles, people who are obviously very, like, share a lot of DNA with them, but are not people they recognize. And that's how they end up in my email.
I just don't it's the more you talk about that, I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm just not sure that I really wanna do it. I would like to
Well,
know my family history, but the whole shock thing, um,
yeah, so I definitely prepare anyone who ever asks me, like, even if they're just like, I know my parents are my parents. I'm like, yeah, but you don't know, you know, there's lots of things. It's not just are your parents your parents. Like it could, this is Pandora's box. I will never say don't do it because I did it. I encourage people to do it all the time, but I also encourage you to remember that this could be a multitude of things. You could find out that your parent's parent isn't their parent, or that um, you know, and it's not necessarily a bad situation. People, donor conceived individuals, adoptees, things like that. There are other situations as a, you know, that your dad's not your dad. Um, there's also situations where your parent could have fathered someone else. Like you could be on the other side of this. You could be the person pop. And to that, I please encourage everyone to please just be very kind to the person because they likely aren't expecting it either.
yeah, yeah, I had a friend recently who did this, and, she found her mom. She had been adopted, and they knew that they were adopted, she and her brother. They knew they'd been
Mhm,
adopted
mhm.
their whole life, but they found their biological mom and biological father only to realize that her mom had another set of twins, 2 girls, but, um, back around the time when we were about 15 or 16, the mom and the daughter were killed in a car accident by a drunk driver, and,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah, talk about traumatic. So, one of the sisters was still alive and was still able to connect with her. I mean, it was a beautiful story. It's beautiful, but it's also just it was heartbreaking, and it was interesting because she and I have been friends for years, and we talked about the situation over and over, and even when we were kids in junior high, we would say, "Do you wanna meet your mom?" And it was amazing the way that God protected her because had she found that out then, it probably would have been way too much for her to take, and just completely an emotional
Yeah.
roller coaster. So she did it as she was older and a little more mature to handle it. And, I mean, it's still a whirlwind, but now she's gained so much family and stuff, and it's just been so many answered
Mhm.
questions to things that she's had all these years. So, I mean, listen, finding out the truth can be tough and can be like,
Yeah.
but at the end of it, sometimes it's really great and it's a really beautiful thing. Obviously for you know, you now have a cousin and an
Yeah.
uncle.
I have a lot of clients who have ended their story ends really amazingly. I mean, like, you know, people who were taken into the folds of the family just like nothing, like they never skipped a beat. They felt like they didn't maybe like the what is it? The black sheep or the
Black
black
sheep of the
I'm
family.
thinking like the ugly duckling. I'm
Yeah,
thinking the ugly duckling, but like the black sheep of the family, you
yeah.
know, like they've always felt like they were on the outside, and then when they meet their other family, they're like, oh, like things just kind of click.
Mhm.
Um, and I've had, clients have pretty sad stories, like your friend's story, like it's really unfortunate um, that they missed out, but sometimes it feels a little better when that sounds terrible, but what I mean by that is like when you find out that someone passed years ago, there would be no possibility of finding them. But
Yeah.
if it's like a 1 year or a 6 month or something like
Yeah.
that, it kind of gets it gets hard, to give that information to them. Like, I'm sorry if we would have been 6 months sooner.
Yeah. We would've
So
yeah. That's
yeah.
really that's tough. But again, that word you said earlier that you didn't really believe in too much for counseling,
Yes,
therapy.
exactly. No, absolutely, 1000% therapy. I'm all about it now. So I've definitely worked through that trauma that I was trying to work through using uh, other people's DNA. But um,
It's an unfair
I'm grateful
stigma
for
on
both.
counseling and therapy and stuff, and I mean, listen, it's not. In our minds, you just think, "Counseling, therapy, I don't need coun" but we all could use some good counseling and
Honestly,
therapy.
I think it really you said it though. You said good counseling, so it really does. I had a history of just having the wrong counselors throughout my lifetime, like
Mhm.
people who weren't giving me tools and working with me. But I was very, very fortunate to end up with an amazing counselor in 2018 who
You
totally changed my ideas on counselors, and I'm sure she is not the only one on the planet. So I think I just had an unfortunate like lineup of people prior to her, but um, yeah, I can say a good counselor is a godsend.
yeah. So tell everyone if they have an issue and maybe they're on Ancestry or 23andMe and things aren't working out for them, how can they get in touch with you?
They can find me at my website. So it's just ShaynaLandry.com. And I did provide it to you, so you'll be able to drop it down below, I guess.
Yep,
And I I have a forum there where you can schedule a consultation with me. I am actually in the process of adding new services because up until very recently, I had only been doing basically where if you were to become my client, I would just take over for you. Like you would just step out, let me solve it, and then I would come back to you. But I've had a lot of requests for me to consult on what they're doing because they're doing it personally. And I would be happy to do that. So I'm going to be adding that to my list of services that I'll offer. And I'll also be doing workshops in the near future as well to basically teach people how to do the process.
that's an excellent idea. I think that's genius. Definitely, because there's so many people out there, um, who need this help. Maybe some that don't even realize it quite yet, but maybe just a little bit
Yep.
more knowledge on how to do it, where to go, what are my next steps, all that kind of stuff would be good.
Mhm.
Anyway, Shayna, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for telling us your story and being so vulnerable to share that with us. And I love everything that you have done, and truly wish the very best for you and your business and family village, all the
Oh, thank you so much, Megan. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored.
Aw, yay, yay. All right, thank you. If you guys need to get in touch with Shayna, all the information is on the screen. Thank you.